The two most prolific leg kickers in all of the UFC coming up this weekend. They're going to square off. They're ranked. We have El Guapo, Chris Gutierrez taking on the young Punisher, 36-year-old Pedro Munhoz. And any chance I get, Matt, I'm going to turn red in the face and say change the nickname. But for Pedro Munhoz, his last time out, he was a big underdog. He fought Sean O'Malley. It's a no contest. And Matt, he landed 36 strikes.
They were all leg kicks.
26 strikes. And all of them were leg kicks. And I say Pedro Munhoz is a prolific leg kicker. Against Dominic Cruz, 19. Aldo, 37. 40 against Rivera. 44 against Edgar. 32 against Aljamain Sterling. When Pedro Munhoz lands leg kicks, it helps set his hands up. Yeah. And if you saw the fight that Munhoz had against Brett Johns, and I know I'll mention the accolades that both of these guys have. Pedro Munhoz has a ton of fight in the night bonuses, performance bonuses. His fight against Brett Johns does not have any bonuses, but my gosh, that second round is wild. Johns is able to land combinations that rock Munhoz. Munhoz drops Brett Johns with a leg kick, with a body kick, and with a head kick that then hits a hook. Munhoz, when he's on, he's on. And the best part about him that isn't necessarily talked about, he's so accredited with his jiu-jitsu. He trains out of American Top Team. But when Munhoz gets into some of those scrambles, like he did against Johns, I'm not getting caught in that sneaky calf slicer like I'm Joe Soto. He's able to get out of those bad positions, and he's able to find himself in either advantageous striking positions or his own grappling dominant sequences. And I know for both of these guys, if you want to play MMA math, they both have fights against a bevy of different fighters. Frankie Edgar, you had, for some reason his last name's evading me, Gerard. It was Munhoz's win that he had overturned. Gerard Sanders that he had in Halifax. He got caught for elevated testosterone after that one. And Gerard Sanders actually beat Chris Gutierrez. But when you look at this matchup, Matt, I mean, Munhoz had a leg to stand on, quite literally, that he beat Frankie Edgar in a main event. Chris Gutierrez ended Frankie Edgar's career in devastating fashion. It was sad. His last time out.
There's a big X factor about this fight, and it just comes down to where Pedro Munhoz is in his career. And I'll talk about this before we started filming. This has been a thing about Pedro Munhoz his whole career. I'm definitely not the first person to tell you it. He is a very powerful striker. We can all agree on that. He has an absurd chin, too. I genuinely think Pedro Munhoz is one of the most durable fighters we have ever seen in the UFC. He's never been knocked down in an MMA match. And he credits a lot of that to the boxing training that he does get at American Top Team. He's flown a lot of professional boxers in to get that one-on-one training, which is really nice to see from a guy like Munhoz. But the problem is, he wasn't fast when he was 26. And at 36, I am a little bit concerned to see how much success he's going to have from the outside against a guy like Chris Gutierrez. Because you bring up the leg kicks against O'Malley, and yes, I think Pedro Munhoz can land a lot of those leg kicks, but O'Malley, the one part of his game that he's very hesitant about all the time is the leg kicks, and that's something he's always going to prioritize more defensively than trying to counter off of, especially at this stage of his career. I don't know if Chris Gutierrez is going to be that hesitant about eating some of those lower body attacks, because Gutierrez, I know we're going to talk about his own leg kicks, he does do a very good job defensively himself, and for Munhoz, I like the big actions. I just don't know if he's really going to be able to go out there and start winning a lot of moments to be able to win rounds. I think Munhoz could win by finish, via knockout, via submission, because he is that talented of a fighter. I'm not joking. Like, when you just talk about skills, Pedro Munhoz has every skill you could ever ask for. I just worry about that at 36. Is Father Time starting to creep up?
And Munhoz bites down on the mouthpiece and throws hooks when he gets in there. And in the Johns fight, he gets hit. In the fight against Aldo, he gets hit. Against Garbrandt, he gets hit. Like, he does get hit. His chin's just amazing, and it's gotten him to this point through his entire career. Chris Gutierrez, the one negative, and it's just one that I have, and then I'll talk about all the positives. It's like going on a first date from Tinder. They get in the car, and then instead of going, hey, you want to go get burgers and fries and watch a movie, it's like, hey, you want to on the way to like Wendy's, because Chris Gutierrez shows you everything right off the hop. He'll throw you the fact that he'll show you the fact he might throw that jump knee. He'll show you the fact that he's going to go for the spinning back elbows and the leg kicks. Now, again, you touched on it and I had it in my notes. He'll turn out that shin and then he turns your leg kick into his own good defensive offensive. But when you look at it for Gutierrez out of all of these fights, the only other negative critique, that draw on his record against Cody Durden coming in on short notice up a weight class, that really tall tie stance that Chris Gutierrez has it kind of exposes his lower half to where takedowns are possible. And I know Gutierrez, as good as the last 2 fights have been against Bakary Dana, where he finished him by spinning back fist, and then he finishes Frankie Edgar. Before that, split decision against Felipe Claros, who was able to employ the takedowns. He beats Andre Ewell and just kicks that leg off. And then, of course, he has that TKO win due to leg kicks against Vince Morales. It's a big part of his game. Even in the Frankie Edgar fight before the knee, it was a big part of the game. And Gutierrez can play peekaboo with, I say the boxing stance, but it's with that high tie guard that really does work well. But against a guy like Munhoz that'll rip to the body with his own hooks, that'll throw those leg kicks, there's just little parts and parcels that Munhoz, if he has Mike Brown or Conan Silveira or one of those guys that have ATT in his corner.
We're talking about it like he's Albert Pujols on the Dodgers, though, and that's never a great time to talk about it, because Albert Pujols could still hit home runs, could still hit for average. He was too slow for the game of baseball, though, so he just couldn't play. Like, the thing about Munhoz
he was too slow before the pitch clock.
He has all of the skills you could ever ask for. He is still that fighter. But at 36, and after having all these crazy fights, it's a little unreasonable for anybody to expect Pedro Munhoz to still be the same fighter he was 5-6 years ago. It's just those miles do add up.
Yeah, and if you do look at it, even the Munhoz fight that he had against Jimmy Rivera, he'll wait there, high stance of his own, and then he loads and throws the big action. I liken him a little bit to a Piotr Jan in that way where he waits, and then he goes. When he goes, it is a little bit telegraphed. It's just if Gutierrez does a lean back.
He did drop Cruz with a jab.
Yeah, and it's a pullback with no big action, then maybe there's an opportunity for Pedro Munhoz in those actions. And don't forget about it. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'll out myself now. I had Munhoz to beat Sean O'Malley with those leg kicks. I thought it was going to be a big difference maker. And in the first round, sure. And then there was that eye rake, the scratch cornea, and so on and so forth. So we get ready for this fight, Matt. Chris Gutierrez riding a wave of success. A lot of steam there. He is favored in the matchup. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Surprised us there, you. I'm going to say over under 90% Gutierrez.
I think it'll be over. I really do.
You do? It's under. So 1,123 total votes. 86% Gutierrez. 69% by decision. 24% by knockout for the 14% that are Munhoz. 72% by decision. So Matt, will it be skiing in the front seat of a car on the way to Wendy's? Or is it going to be a gritty win by a guy who's 9-7 with 2 no contests in the UFC and 7 bonuses? A fight of the night machine in Pedro Munhoz.
How good was Albert Pujols on the Dodgers? Not very good. That's my problem with Munhoz. Again, are all those skills still there? Yes, of course they are. If he gets the fight to the mat, I could see him having a lot of success. The problem is, Pedro Munhoz's only takedown attempts come from him pulling guard off of either guillotines or him, oddly enough, pulling guard off a caught kick because he likes to go for heel hooks. Munhoz is not much of an offensive wrestler whatsoever in his game. He does rely a lot on his opponent's takedown entries to then just start his own grappling sequences. I don't think he's going to get that opportunity, and I do think at range, Gutierrez is just a younger, kind of more explosive version of what Pedro Munhoz can do on the feet, and for those reasons, I do have Gutierrez.
I have Gutierrez ever so slightly, and I pick Pedro Munhoz in a lot of fights on the channel, but when I look at it for Gutierrez, do I love the boxing? Not necessarily. Do I love the volume? Not necessarily. I do like the fact that he can throw different looks at you. He can kind of smoke screen some things in there. The reason why I make the analogy that I did is the fact that he lands that knockout blow to Bakary Dana. He landed the same thing to Frankie Edgar before he ended up finishing him. So he will show some of these tells out there early. And if you do look at it from Munhoz, obviously a much higher level competition for a really long time. Brett Johns, the man's losses. Aljamain Sterling, Pedro Munhoz, and Danny Sabatello. He's like the Jared Brooks that we never talk about. And I wish he was still around. Matt, in the matchup, both of us going with Boss Rutan, El Guapo, Chris Gutierrez to bring the win back to Factory X Muay Thai. Matt, Factory X has Dustin Jacoby to come on this card, but the next fight, Tanner Boser. He's going to be taking on Iwan Kutsalaba. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.